All right. Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of the Commercial Real Estate 101 podcast. It's great to see you all this fine afternoon. If this is the first time you guys are tuning in, we started this group back in 2020 to kind of become the watering hole for commercial real estate. And ever since then, we've just had a variety of different speakers that have come on to talk about a wide range of commercial real estate topics. And today we have the honor of hosting Patrick Nessenthaler, who has a host of titles. So I just want to make sure we're going to say this all correctly, but in his capacity with the University of Louisville, he's the professor of real estate finance and real estate program director as well, which is kind of going to be the topic of discussion for today. But he also is involved in a variety of different companies, him being the co-founder of Crinetics, leading innovator of commercial real estate technology, and as well as Ness and Associates, consulting company that he started as well. Great discussion that we're going to have today about the real estate program itself and really the beginnings of it, and now where he sees the future of the program going. It's sorely needed in our community. I'm sure it's going to be a topic of discussion that maybe you guys can apply in your own markets. If you guys are in a market where you maybe don't have a real estate program at your local university, I think it'd be kind of cool, actionable, hopefully takeaways that you can take and maybe help establish one in your local market. So, Patrick, honored to have you on the show.
Well, I appreciate you having me. You say too many nice things, but no, I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, no, me as well. And I actually, I think we talked a little bit offline how I got into contact with you. You had done a keynote address for CCIM local meeting that we had, and you did a phenomenal job kind of talking about the future risks of commercial real estate as you saw them in 2025. And from there, I found out about your capacity as a real estate professor at U of L, and you constantly are trying to engage your students in the real estate community here locally. And so I thought, what better way to kind of tell people about what you're doing than just have you on the podcast and just kind of talk about it. So to start, before we really dive into the nuts and bolts of that, I kind of wanted to give people a perspective of who you are as a person. So if you don't mind kind of sharing a little bit about your backstory, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be great. And just on the keynote, that's the last time I ever do a keynote address, the day after a presidential election. But I think everything I kind of talked about, it's starting to ring true. And but we can talk about that later. But no, so to your question, so I've been in the commercial real estate industry about 20 years. I always kind of describe my career as just kind of mastering the division. And what I mean by that is, I came out of undergrad in 2006. So right before the world blew up, right? So great financial crisis. And I had a professor that told me, good counseling. He said, hey, there's a big recession that's going to come. All these just poor loans are getting in the secondary mortgage market. He said, when you come out of this recession, come out of it with some human capital. So he actually convinced me to go into the appraisal world, which is a fantastic industry, especially when you're wanting to learn how to build pro formas, different asset classes, different markets. When everything crashed, I was still making some money, et cetera. But I did that in Dallas, Fort Worth till about 2010. Realized I didn't want to be an appraiser, even though I do have the MAI. Again, just a fantastic network in terms of accessing data and things like that. So I'm still kind of part of that fraternity. So went back to graduate school in 2010. Went to a full-time program in upstate New York, which is a heck of a lot different than Dallas, Texas. Wanted one more life experience, and it absolutely changed my life. And it's the Baker program in real estate, which is I believe 60% plus minus of our folks are international. So we had folks from China, folks from India, folks from Thailand. And it was just a great way just to experience just a new worldview. That took me down to New York City. So I was in New York for about 10 years. I married into Louisville. I'll tell you about that story. But I did, the same assets that I was doing market studies, feasibility studies on. I was doing more on the capital advisory side, went into investment banking, which kind of took me into restructuring due to COVID. We have our 5-month-old he was born in November of 2019. So fast forward 5 months, the pandemic happened, and we weren't going to have, we were going to kill each other, right? So we obviously didn't want to raise our infant in a 1,000 square foot apartment in New York City. So the universe just said, it's time to make a move. And and actually where I got into academia, Louisville's obviously it's a smaller community than New York City, of course. But I thought a great way to kind of tap the community was doing it through University of Louisville, and fell in love with academia. And obviously the things that I do is really not so much about the money, but just, I really enjoy what I do in terms of just inspiring students. And obviously, as you mentioned, our community really needs this type of curriculum, and we're just excited about the future. So hopefully that's a bit of a background. And I talked about the numerator, right? So, understanding how to get down to NOI, that was kind of the first half of my career. And then the back half, understanding debt and equity and how to capitalize transactions. So really the denominator. And that's how I describe my career. And hopefully that resonates with some folks that are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of, again, I think your experience level and a variety of different avenues of commercial real estate can also lend some value to you being a professor and teaching people about the industries, because to your point, there's a lot of different verticals within commercial real estate that people can explore, and that you can obviously have a great career in all these different verticals. And for you to have that type of experience, and then also apply that now to opening up several of your own companies and providing consulting advice can be very beneficial. So
Yep.
regarding the professorship, I kind of want to start at that point where you made that decision in New York City. You're like, you know what, raising a family in this environment may or may not be the most, the best thing to do, at least in your particular instance. Obviously it's great for other people as well, but in your case, you decided that it wasn't necessarily what you all wanted to do for the future. So you decided to relocate to Louisville. It seems like your wife is from Louisville originally, which is what the drawback here. Was it kind of as soon as you got to Louisville, you decided to kind of look into this process of getting into professorship? And then on top of that, what was the state of the real estate program at that point in time as well? Because I know it's a relatively new program. It's not something that's been around for a very long time. So if you can elaborate on those two things, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I'll give you the fact pattern. So I started teaching remotely in spring of 2021, and it was at the graduate program. So, and I got to give kudos where kudos are supposed to be given. Nat Irvin was the associate dean. He's still the associate dean. And I was connected with Nat, and I just kind of told him, hey, we're relocating to Louisville, want to get more involved with community. And I thought a great conduit to do that was teaching. And so I put a resume on his desk. He said, let's make it happen. So he started getting me involved with the MBA program. I did that part-time for about to 2023. And then I was introduced to a gentleman named Dr. Chris Stivers. So Chris Stivers he's really the individual that really kickstarted the minor. And I also have to give credit to LDG Development. So Chris Dissinger and Mark Lechner run a nice check to the College of Business, $500,000 that really sponsored my role and really kind of kickstarted the minor. So we kickstarted the minor, in 2023, but really our first semester was in spring of 2024, right? So we're literally in our third semester, which is, it's fantastic. We feel like we've been doing this for 5-10 years. We have 35 students that are, pursuing the minor, and we've already cleared the goal that we had, which is 30 students per academic year. But we're still young. We're still rolling this out, and obviously still getting the word out that we're doing this. And just a real quick on the minor. So there's 4 core classes that we focus on: real estate finance and investments, real estate development and management, which is what I co-teach with LDG, real estate law. So Cora Henderson, who's at Pitt and Frank, Cora Henderson, a tremendous value add to the program. And then we have real estate economics, which is Dr. Way out of the economics department. Tremendous class. So we got a great core, and obviously folks that are giving money, but obviously support us from the standpoint of hiring our students, and obviously everything that LDG is doing is fantastic as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, it does, 100%. So regarding that, so the real estate program was funded by LDG, which was great. Chris Dissinger and Mark Lechner in this community have been obviously big proponents for continuing to grow the real estate community locally, which is phenomenal. Regarding the real estate minor as a whole, I guess formulating or structuring that process is kind of fascinating to me. So you referenced these 4 key pieces of the curriculum that you're implementing. What made you guys decide to kind of follow those 4 different methods or 4 different classes? And then how did you guys go about putting the pieces together, and maybe some challenges that you all faced along the way?
I think it's very thoughtful how we're rolling it out, because we're not rolling out a major, right? We're rolling out a minor. And that's actually great, because as you know, it's a very interdisciplinary, profession, right? So you have the finance folks, which is obviously this is housed in the finance department in the College of Business, but we got to have our engineers, right? We got to have our architects, we got to have our civil planners. So having a minor gives us the ability to kind of branch it out across the university, and that's by design. And we've, verified that different universities across the country, it's the best way to kind of roll out a real estate program is do it with a minor. And I think we're kind of complementing not really complimented. We're hitting kind of the major tasks, right? So obviously, we read a lot of contracts. I mean, it's good to have a JD to be in real estate because you're constantly reading documentation. So obviously, real estate law is something that we had to have, and obviously describing property rights and things of that effect. And then when you think about real estate finance, I mean, you need to be able to put together a pro forma, crunch numbers, understand how to capitalize transactions. So that's valuable. And then we think about the practicality of it. So development and management, right? So co-teaching that with LDG, we go on case studies. So we throw hard hats on. We're going to go see the Prestonian. So you get to see kind of what the development process actually looks like. So that class is half academic and half practicality. So we did that on purpose. And then when you think about real estate economics, how are towns, what's the urban planning behind all this? So that's a great compliment as well. And obviously Dr. Way is, tremendous from a real estate economic standpoint. So I think they are getting, a very, there's more classes that we need to add. Let's put it that way. But I think they're getting a thoughtful,
overview of what
a thoughtful overview of real estate with those 4 classes. I would think that's a good way to do it. And then when we think about other classes, the next class I want to roll out is really like a financial modeling class. Everything's done in the spreadsheet. I mean, it's just how our industry works. So getting students involved, building nested functions, draw schedules, equity waterfalls. We touch on a lot of that in real estate finance, but we want them to be really hands-on and kind of learn, kind of go through like an Excel dojo, if you will. So that's kind of my next hope and dream is really to roll out a really thoughtful financial modeling course.
Awesome. And out of curiosity with the program itself. So the way to get the minor to be accredited, I guess, for lack of a better word, is that just all compliance through the University of Louisville? They just have to have a certain overview of the courses, review the curriculum, and ensure that they in fact are achieving whatever the marks are for constituting that as a minor. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that Dr. Stivers took care of most of that. I mean, that's the good thing is that I get to teach, I get to help students get jobs. I kind of get to wave the flag for the program. All the academic grease, I kind of leave up to the PhDs, right?
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, that's part of the being an administrator in the university, being able to understand those moving pieces to make sure that the people who are administering the curriculum can do so without having to worry about all the different minutia that comes along with, keeping compliant with all these different things. So that makes complete sense. So, you kind of alluded to the future of the program. Obviously, this is very much in its infancy. The first semester was 2024. We are, as we're recording this, in the first semester of 2025. Yep. Where do you see the future of the program going? You kind of alluded to, real estate modeling as something that you want to look into implement as well. Where do you see the future of the program going? And then what type of partnerships are you trying to reach out to in the community to try to help foster that growth over time?
So we are in the process of putting together our real estate advisory board. And, there's obviously diversity amongst the board, but diversity in terms of profession as well. And I think when we think about it, we have a lot of folks from the private sector, developers, investors, brokers, but folks on the public side as well. So, there's a lot of NIMBYism in Louisville, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't say folks on the public side don't understand real estate development. I think we do a better job of bridging that. And when you think about University of Louisville as a conduit for, change, obviously change with, the next gen of students that are kind of getting out in the Louisville ecosystem, but things that we're talking about and discussing and making more pragmatic in the ecosystem. So we kind of see it as a conduit for some change, at least on the real estate side. So as we think about that, we got to be pragmatic about how we roll out some of that change. And I think the best way to do that is have a community voice. So we can do that with a real estate advisory board. So I won't give away too many details. I mean, there'll be some information that comes out in Business First, but I mean, wheels are in motion to put together that board. We have a meeting here in the next couple of weeks to kind of finalize what that board's going to look like. And then when we think about, growing our program, obviously we're housed in the College of Business, but we think about just ways of delivering more of an interdisciplinary, program, right? So maybe a center, maybe an institute. We've had a few professionals that have come to us and said, hey, we're looking for, a project manager, right? Well, we need to have a little bit more interactivity with the speed school and have more students that are integrated from that perspective. And obviously we have students that maybe, hey, want to go get their JD, but they want to be in the real estate profession. Well, we should be affiliated with the Brandeis School. So we're slowly making those relationships, and we understand what the clear path is going to look like. And then we think about, as we get to we have a long way to go, but when we think about having kind of a center, an institute for real estate, we think about having like an annual symposium. We think about having like a mentor-mentee relationship. So getting our students relationship with owner operators, developers, bankers, et cetera, right out of the gate. So they have a coach, right? We think about like a student investment fund, right? I don't want to comp it out to like IU Bloomington or Purdue or some of the other Midwest schools, but UT Austin has a fantastic real estate fund where, the undergraduates do the analytical work, and then the master's students, they go out there and deploy the capital as like an investment manager, if you will. So we see what we want to develop. We see where we want to go with this. And the beauty of working with LDG is like, they're big time developers. I mean, they've got several billion under construction. And when I first met Chris, he's like, we just came from University of Wisconsin. University of Wisconsin is like the flagship center for real estate in the country. You got MIT and the NYU, et cetera, but University of Wisconsin is a fantastic program to model off of. So we definitely have dreams and ambitions to get to that level. And I think we're walking the right path to do that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are going to have an advisory board that not only comprises of industry professionals, but, the public side as well, because, one of the things that I'm hopeful for with the program is that, these professionals who are graduating from the University of Louisville can assimilate within the ecosystem of the real estate community here in our local market and help solve some of the problems that we face as an industry, and also be able to satisfy the needs of the community. I know obviously here in our local market, we had pushed an initiative to deliver 15,000 new affordable houses or homes within the next several years. And, we're making progress towards that, but I'm sure in other parts of the country, they face similar issues as far as affordable housing. There's going to be demand and need for industrial facilities and retail facilities and a variety of different other product types within the commercial real estate community or sector. And there's different professionals within those verticals that service and provide that product. So we need more and more of those individuals. And the fact 100%. That you've been deliberate about trying to create a communication between the public and private side is definitely going to be important to make sure that we can solve those problems going forward. So
yeah, we see that. And that's exactly why we were very thoughtful with putting that board together. And, there obviously is, real estate's it's a relationship between the private and the public sector. Mm-hmm. And I think we got to do a better job in the community of creating a better relationship. And, how can we act as the conduit and maybe, spark some change? And we see that, right? So we want to just better that relationship. And I think a real estate advisory board that is diverse, both from the private and public sector will help that. So we're excited about it.
Definitely. And obviously we have people who listen to the podcast from all across the country. So, I'd like to try to also provide some value to them as far as ways that they can potentially take some actionable takeaways for maybe they themselves are in a community where there's either a real estate program or maybe not quite yet. Are there ways that encouragement or advice you could provide them to see if there's ways for them to kind of mimic the type of stuff that you guys are doing? Or I guess if you were to be able to do this again in another market, how would you go about doing it?
Well, in academia, it takes a long time to get things done. And U of L is a state-funded institution, and it just takes even longer relative to a private university. So have that caveat, have that in mind before you start taking that type of action. But I get so much inbound traffic from, their owner operators, brokers, wherever. We always have we're oversubscribed in terms of speakers that kind of want to come and speak to our students. So the first thing I would do is just find out, who on the academic side you can reach out to and start having those type of conversations. And obviously, if you're somebody with a pocketbook, universities are always loving money. What can we do to endow something? What can we do to roll out new programs? But I'd also say too, for the folks that, are senior in their career, students really love the practitioner engagement. It's just like, how'd you make your money? How'd you make your wealth? What kind of mistakes should I avoid? Students love that. and it inspires me. I mean, that's the reason why I do what I do is how can I give back? What's the give back that I can do? And so anybody around the country, I mean, contact your local university, find out who the folks are that I mean, I don't know who that, it could be in Seattle, it could be somewhere in Texas. Just tap that university network and say, hey, I'd like to get more involved. And is there an opportunity for me to come in and speak? And then I think it's, if you really want to get involved in terms of just throwing around some dough, and then you got to start talking to the higher ups, the boards of trustees, et cetera. I can't really speak to that, but it's important just to get involved and just find out who the folks are, and just start speaking to students and taking students out for coffees and things like that, and just get involved.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think sometimes, similar to what you're describing, sometimes people just don't know where to start. And obviously, I think a lot of people have a inward desire to want to be able to help the next generation achieve their whatever level of success they want to, or not even success, but whatever their goals and aspirations are. It's always nice to be able to provide some context or some advice or whatever that could help them get to the other side. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who take advantage of this. And
I'd also say too, Raphael, sorry to interrupt, but COVID had a huge impact, not only on real estate, but we're starting to see the data come out, especially on our younger generation, that COVID, I mean, students lost, a couple of years of their life from just social development. And it's starting to show up in test scores. It's starting to show up in, students that just are kind of apathetic of getting into, the business world. It's like, I don't want to go in the office. Like, I'm not going to get anything from that. So we really need to patch that. Right. So for the folks who want to give back, I mean, you got to think about that next generation to inspire them to, be in the corporate world, get in the office, go out, have drinks, have happy hours with your colleagues and things like that. And COVID had just a big dent in a couple of years of our next generation. So we definitely have to solve that. So maybe a call to action for the folks that really want to get involved. We're starting to see it in the test scores and things like that. And that's just not good.
No, I can understand that. Yeah, for sure. And so I guess one of the things that I was kind of curious about too is from a local standpoint, what ways what support are you all looking for, just for those who are listening locally as well, for ways to get involved, or other types of, calls to action you have for just people who are local that are in the industry that could potentially support the program?
Well, I'm happy to put my email address. I always get inbound traffic for folks that want to speak. We typically have, 4 or 5 speakers between 2 classes every semester. So I always try to kind of shuffle up, folks that want to come in and speak. But we have, just for example, we have Fred Sutherland, who's coming in from PRG. We have Brian Lavin, who's a big gentleman big gentleman. He's the president and CEO, I believe, of NTS. Right. So Brian Lavin's obviously a big patriot of what we're trying to do. So Brian's coming in and speaking. So we have 2, just market movers here that are coming in and speaking. So that's probably the biggest thing. But at the same time, like, come in and just take a student out for coffee, and just say, hey, here's what we're doing at whatever. And here's some of the lessons that I learned. So just having coffees and interacting with our students, I think is huge. And we do have a real estate club, a real estate association. So I can connect you with one of our students who runs that. We're constantly having speakers and folks come in there, but obviously it's just, again, creating that interconnectivity with the community. So here, let me put my email address in. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure to include them in the show notes as well. And, also, you guys have outreach to our local CCIM chapter.
Right.
I'm vice president this year for the chapter, and also a phenomenal organization. If you guys haven't a chance to look into the CCIM Institute, it really is a world-class organization. But similar type of things where we have events, and every time we had an event, we actually had a recent event where we went over to the Expo Center, and they talked to us a little bit about what the program, what was going on. It's like a $400 million redevelopment. They're going to have a 350,000 square foot addition, and then fully renovate a whole section of the building as well to better support the inbound traffic we're receiving for different events, and just create a much more agreeable or positive experience for people who are going to be actually, coming to our city to take part in our events. So it was a really cool experience, and I got a chance to meet several of the students there. So it was really cool. So it's great to be able to, have these types of events where people within our community that are also in the commercial real estate business can come in and just have these conversations with, students, but also just congregate with other people in the business. So
100%. And I'm an expat, so I obviously I bleed red, and I go to as many Cardinal games as possible. But it's a very proud community. It's a small community, but it's very proud, and we look after each other. So this is just another avenue for folks that are proud proud Louisvillians, maybe U of L grads, right, to just connect that next generation. And we got to create more opportunities here too. They shouldn't have to go to Cincinnati or Chicago. I mean, the best opportunity should be here, and we should keep that that churn going locally, right?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I'm similar to you. I'm not from Louisville either. So it's become home for me over the last 8 years. I've been here since 2017. So yeah, it is a unique community. It's been a great one for me and my family, and I'm looking forward to seeing it continually grow over time. Last question before we kind of open it up to Q&A. What was, I guess, usually what I like to ask at the end of the podcast is to kind of get some insight from the guest regarding maybe a question that you wish I would have asked you that was pertinent to this particular topic. I just wanted to see if there was anything in particular that you wanted to kind of share regarding this topic.
Here's one, and I'm going to answer it because the question is when do we have a program that's going to succeed? When do we know that we've made it? And I always think about that. And again, the way that I answer that, it survives without me. It survives without LDG. We've created something that will always be there at the University of Louisville, no matter who's in charge. And I think we got a long way to go to get that, but that's ultimately when we've succeeded, is when, LDG, we don't have to be as involved. I don't have to be as involved. We can bring in an outside director. I'd always love to see our students compete in some of these case study competitions and winning them. But that's when I know we succeeded, is where I don't need to be I can just kind of move on and do something different, where the program just keeps going. And I hope we'll get there. I actually know we'll get there at some point.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of where you'd like? I mean, is it a few years out? And that's obviously a loaded question, I guess, but more so than,
We'll see. I don't think it's 10 years away. Maybe it's 5 years away.
Sure.
But again, some of the things that we've already accomplished, I mean, that was a legitimate goal of having 30 students pursuing the real estate minor, and we've already achieved that in 2 semesters. We're literally graduating our first round of students in May. So let's just keep it going. Let's get our students in the ecosystem, and it's just the snowball effect. So
creating that alumni network, which just, again, it takes time to develop, but over time, if you continually churn out students that become productive professionals, they themselves are advocates for the new crop of individuals that are going to be graduating, and it creates this ecosystem that you guys are trying to develop. And to your point, over time, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. And at that point, you can, to your point, step away, and now there's someone else who could take the helm and run the ship, as they say.
Exactly.
Definitely. Well, I wanted to go ahead and open up the Q&A in the meantime. So there seems several people on the call right now. So if you guys want to, go ahead and type away in the chat box, and we'll try to get your questions answered as best we can. In the meantime, as people are typing away in the chat box, I kind of wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about some of the other stuff that you've got going on. We've kind of alluded to Crinetics, a little bit of what one of your companies, and then Nessenthaler Associates. Can you give us a little quick overview of what those companies are and some of the value propositions that you offer?
Yeah. So Nessenthaler Associates. So we got a couple different verticals, but the focus right now is on capital markets. And my partner who's running that, Simone McCauley. Simone is similar background to myself. Spent time in New York, Chicago, and I'd say the value prop is when we got to Louisville, it's traditional high net worth money, and it's a lot of full recourse banks. And there's not a lot of structured finance. There's not a lot of, sophisticated capitalization of real estate opportunities. And a lot of the coastal capital, the private equity companies, the hedge funds, they don't do a lot of business here. And but it's not to, not to just pick on Louisville, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, we don't have that type of capital. So we have that Rolodex. And as we're taking on more local mandates, obviously it's a very choppy capital market. But so we're rolling our capital markets business on Ness and Associates. We also do real estate tax advisory. So that obviously keeps us busy. And then at some point we want to roll out like our investment management business. And we like to capitalize. Real estate's very hyper local, so we might as well capitalize on what we're good at locally. And we think about logistics. Louisville's actually a big healthcare ecosystem as well. A lot of senior housing owner operators were founded here, still operate here. So I have a really strong healthcare real estate background. So we're looking at logistics and healthcare real estate as well. Crinetics that's a fun one. That's something that we've been doing for. I did applied research at Rutgers with two of the largest data providers in the world, and we discovered some really, really cool stuff. And you sprinkle in or you infuse artificial intelligence, machine learning, like a deep learning model. I think everybody's they look at ChatGPT like generative AI, which is fantastic. But if you start infusing AI and statistics, and you start looking at what machine learning can do in terms of training and getting better and perfecting forecasts and assumptions and pro formas and DCFs. I mean, some of the cool things that we're doing, and we have the green light with I don't want to drop names, but
Sure, yeah.
Things that we're working on. When we talk about property insurance and extreme weather, right? Property insurance is just we have a rental property, and my property insurance has gone up like 200% in a couple of years. How do I forecast that in my pro forma? So with our tool and, with the right application, the right data, which again, we have the partners in place, we can roll something out where we could sell it to insurance companies, FEMA, municipalities. If you're a banker and you're doing a 5-year note, what's my insurance premium going to look like in 4 or 5 years, right? So we have those type of tools to do very advanced forecasting for the commercial real estate ecosystem. And we're touching all different parts. So obviously insurance is one of them, but I love the ability to kind of do that type of forecast. And then at some point we're going to roll out, I know why NVIDIA is as expensive as it is, because we're looking at, what kind of infrastructure will we need to roll out a live, large language model where you can just talk to it and kind of be interactive. So you think about like a pick on CoStar, but it's a SaaS model. It's very interactive. Well, what if I had kind of my own LLM where I could just talk to it and ask it specific questions about markets, rental rates, comps, insurance premiums? So that's kind of the infrastructure that we're working towards. And we're talking to some top brass with some really strong end users, and so we're just rolling it out now. But it's something where I started this journey back in January of 2021, and I had a bunch of universities that just said, no, we're not going to help you out. And then I struck gold when I partnered up with Rutgers, and the rest is history. But we have a few more things we have to do to really launch that flag. And once that's public and it's out there, we're going to make a lot of noise. So we're really excited about what we're doing at Crinetics.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit offline. I'd love to have you back once that time is, once we get to that point, and we can talk a little bit about more about what, the implementation of that looks like, and, different applications and ways that potentially, and the way that you're presenting this, it seems like this is going to be companies that are going to be leveraging the software or leveraging your solution to solve various different problems, not just insurance, not just, forecasting on the modeling side for banking, et cetera. There's a lot of different applications, and this will probably be custom per business that you're working with. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a we call it a configurator, but it's a and it'll have like an LLM that they can be interactive, and it would tailor to your business, right? So whatever it is that you're doing, it builds that knowledge base respective to the end user. And just somebody who's obviously, I put together pro formas and DCFs, and I'm very good at financial modeling. But if you start infusing that with the data that's out there, and real estate's a derivative of local economics, right? So you do have traditional data points as well as like traditional space market and non-traditional space market. But the question is, can I look at crime rates? Can I look at Yelp reviews? Like, what does that do to, how does that impact rents going forward? And my point is AI, there's so much information out there, and now we have the computing power to process it and turn it into statistical fashion. Trust me, it's a heavy load and it's not going to be cheap, but there's a critical path on how to do that and deliver that type of workflow to the ecosystem. And the stuff we're doing is, it's just, when we talk to folks that have 30 years in the business and we get to kind of the secret sauce, and they look at it and they're just like, let's talk further. So when light bulbs go off for folks that are managing directors at a very large institution, that's exciting. So we're really excited to roll this out.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to the day that it does roll out. And like I said, we'd definitely love to have you back on. In the meantime, it looks like, we don't have any questions as of right now. So I guess, Patrick, I really do appreciate your time. I know you're extremely busy. You teach at the university, you have a couple companies that you're actively managing, you've got a young family at home. So there's a lot of moving pieces. So we definitely appreciate the time that you've taken with us today to share some insights pertaining to the real estate program, and then also shared a little bit about the other work that you have been doing as well. If people want to learn more about you, the different companies that you're involved in, and also maybe getting involved in some way with the University of Louisville's program of the real estate program, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I put my email up there. I don't know if that blasts out to the audience.
Yeah, I did. I threw it up on there, and we'll also make sure to include that in the show notes as well, because we're going to be distributing this on YouTube and all the podcast formats as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for having me on. I love just chatting and obviously just amplifying what we're doing locally, and it's just exciting. So thanks I know you have plenty of other speakers that want to come on. So thanks for squeezing me in.
No, I wouldn't have wanted anyone else. Like I said, you had a great conversation or great presentation at the CCIM Institute. And obviously we're really honored to partner with the University of Louisville, and really, help the next generation to continue to grow within our community and essentially permeate into the real estate community. So again, thank you so much, Patrick. We'll make sure to include your email, and we'll also throw in your LinkedIn and other social links into the show notes as well, so people can reach out if they have any questions. But
sounds good.
Again, thank you so much. If you guys are watching this in a YouTube format, please like and subscribe. It makes a big impact on our ability to reach a broader audience. And we obviously really appreciate the support. If you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, leave us a 5-star review. We've been able to reach 6,000 to 7,000 downloads a month. So we obviously appreciate all the support that you guys have shown the channel, and we're looking forward to keeping in touch. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.